Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where no matter how clear, logical, or patient you are, the other person refuses to understand? Not because they lack the ability, but because they simply don't want to. It's frustrating, isn't it? Like trying to describe the vastness of the ocean to someone who refuses to look beyond their small pond. Like shouting into the wind, hoping it will carry your words when, in reality, it only scatters them into nothingness. Some people don't listen to understand. They listen to argue. They listen to twist your words to defend their own rigid beliefs at all costs. They are not seeking truth. They are seeking control. And no amount of reasoning will break through a mind that is locked shut. The more you explain, the more they resist. The more you justify, the more they twist your words. It's a game you can never win because they aren't playing to learn, they're playing to dominate. But here's the truth. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you reclaim your power. When you stop seeking validation, when you stop wasting your energy on people who have already decided what they believe, you become untouchable. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself. You no longer drain yourself trying to be understood by those who refuse to listen. Number one, they've already made up their minds. One of the greatest mistakes you can make is trying to explain yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. You've probably experienced this before. You share an idea, a new perspective, or a personal decision that means a lot to you, only to be met with resistance, skepticism, or even outright dismissal. It doesn't matter how logical, clear, or well-intentioned you are. Their minds were made up before you even spoke. These people aren't listening to understand. They're listening to defend their own limited beliefs. They don't seek truth. They seek validation. Every counterpoint, every piece of evidence, every well-structured argument you offer isn't received as a learning opportunity. It's seen as a threat. Because deep down, it's not about logic or reason. It's about control. Some people would rather remain stuck in their beliefs than entertain the possibility that they might be wrong. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Think about that. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to make others see your perspective, live it. Instead of debating with those who refuse to listen, show them through your actions. The wise do not waste their breath on those unwilling to understand. They embody what they believe in. Let me tell you a story. A man I know, we'll call him John, became passionate about self-improvement. He started waking up early, exercising daily, and working tirelessly to build his own business. Naturally, he wanted to share his journey with his old friends, thinking they would be inspired by his transformation. But instead of support, he was met with sarcasm. "Oh, so you think you're better than us now?" They laughed. "Relax, man. Life isn't all about discipline." At first, John tried to explain. He told them how much better he felt, how fulfilling it was to work towards something meaningful. But no matter what he said, they kept finding ways to mock him. Then he realized something crucial. They weren't rejecting his ideas because they didn't understand them. They rejected them because accepting them would mean admitting that they could change too. And that was too uncomfortable. It's easier to mock someone else's progress than to confront your own stagnation. So how do you deal with this? First, stop explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand. You owe no one a justification for your growth. True growth speaks for itself. Second, lead by example. Let your results do the talking. No argument is more powerful than undeniable success. And finally, protect your energy. Some conversations aren't worth having, and some people aren't ready to hear what you have to say, and that's okay. It's not your job to wake up those who choose to stay asleep. At the end of the day, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. Let small-minded people stay where they are. Focus on your own path. Live your truth. And let your actions be your explanation. Because the wise do not argue with closed minds. They rise above them. Number two, they twist your words against you. Few things are more frustrating than trying to explain yourself to someone who isn't listening in good faith. You start with the best intentions, believing that if you just clarify your point, they will finally understand. But no matter how carefully you choose your words, they twist, distort, and manipulate them into something completely different. Before you know it, you're on the defensive. stuck in a battle you never intended to fight. Here's the truth. The more you explain, the more ammunition you give them. People who twist your words aren't seeking clarity, they're seeking control. They want to dictate the narrative, to make you look foolish, wrong, or even guilty. And the more you try to correct them, the deeper you sink into their trap. It's a game you cannot win because their goal isn't truth, it's power. They don't care about understanding your perspective. They care about controlling how your words are perceived. And the moment you engage, you give them exactly what they want. As Epictetus once said, when someone is properly grounded in life, they do not waste time defending their honor. Think about that. The moment you stop feeling the need to explain yourself to manipulators, you take away their power. Instead of getting tangled in endless justifications, you stay calm, grounded, and unbothered. Your silence becomes your strongest shield. Let me tell you a story. A woman I know, we'll call her Olivia, worked with a colleague who constantly misrepresented her words. If she offered a suggestion in a meeting, he would later reframe it as, "Olivia thinks we're doing everything wrong." If she shared an idea, he'd spin it into, "Olivia is trying to take control." At first, she tried explaining herself, hoping he would finally understand her true intentions. She clarified, defended, and restated her points, thinking reason would prevail. But the more she defended herself, the more he twisted her words. No matter how much she explained, he found new ways to distort her message. Then one day she stopped. No more justifications. No more trying to correct the lies. She let him talk while she focused on action, not argument. And guess what? When she stopped feeding his tactics, his power over her disappeared. Without her reactions, his words lost their weight. The truth became evident over time, and people saw through his manipulation. So how do you deal with people like this? First, recognize the trap. If someone constantly misinterprets you, it's not a misunderstanding. It's manipulation. They aren't looking for clarity, they're looking for control. Once you see that, you stop falling for their bait. Second, stop over-explaining. You owe no justifications to those who refuse to listen in good faith. If someone is twisting your words, explaining yourself won't help. It will only fuel their game. The less you engage, the less power they have over you. And finally, let silence be your shield. When someone is determined to twist your words, the best response is no response. Your silence forces them to rely on their own manipulation without your participation. And without your reaction, they lose their hold over you. At the end of the day, you don't have to defend yourself against those who are committed to misunderstanding you. The truth always reveals itself in time. So stay grounded, stay silent, and let your actions speak louder than their manipulations ever could. Number 3, they drain your energy with useless debates. One of the biggest energy traps you can fall into is engaging in pointless debates with small-minded people. You've probably been there. You make a reasonable point, expecting a thoughtful conversation, but instead they twist your words, argue in circles, and refuse to acknowledge logic. It doesn't matter how well you explain yourself. They're not here for the truth. They're here to drain your energy. Arguing with small minds is like wrestling in the mud. You both get dirty, but they enjoy it. These people don't debate to learn or grow. They do it to provoke, frustrate, and pull you into their chaos. And the longer you engage, the more exhausted you become. While you're trying to prove a point, they're simply enjoying the fact that they have your attention, your emotions, and your energy wrapped around their game. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Zeno of Citium once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." In other words, making mistakes through action is better than wasting time in fruitless arguments. The wise don't waste their breath on those unwilling to understand. They know that true intelligence isn't about winning debates, it's about knowing when to walk away. Let me share a story. A man I know, we'll call him Ryan, had a coworker who loved to argue. No matter what Ryan said, this person would twist it into a debate, not to learn but to challenge for the sake of challenging. If Ryan shared an idea, his coworker would derail the conversation with distractions. If Ryan talked about a personal achievement, the coworker would downplay it. For months, Ryan tried to explain himself, to prove his points, to reason with him. But then he realized something. It didn't matter what he said. His coworker wasn't debating to understand. He was debating to waste Ryan's time. So Ryan stopped engaging. He responded with short, calm replies and never got pulled into the back and forth. And guess what? Without Ryan's energy to feed on, the coworker lost interest. Eventually, he moved on, looking for someone else to frustrate. So how do you deal with people like this? First, recognize when a discussion is going nowhere. If someone isn't debating in good faith, walk away. Don't waste your time explaining yourself to someone who is only listening to argue. Second, protect your peace. Your time and energy are valuable. Don't give them away to people who argue just for the sake of arguing. Every moment spent in a pointless debate is a moment stolen from your personal growth, your happiness, and your goals. And finally, remember that not every battle is worth fighting. True power lies in knowing when to disengage. Some arguments aren't meant to be won, they're meant to be avoided. Let small minds fight among themselves while you stay focused on things that actually matter. At the end of the day, you don't need to prove yourself to those who argue just to argue. Let them talk. Let them debate with themselves. Let them get lost in their own noise. You have better things to do. Protect your peace and keep moving forward. If you've watched this far, don't forget to leave a comment with "Thank God" and give this video a like. Your support means the world and keeps me motivated to create more powerful content. Let's keep learning and growing together. Thank you. Number 4, they project their own limitations onto you. One of the most toxic things small-minded people do is project their own fears and limitations onto you. You've probably experienced it. You share a big goal, an ambitious dream, or a bold vision for your future, expecting excitement or encouragement. But instead of support, you get doubt. Are you sure you can handle that? Most people fail at that, you know. Maybe you should play it safe. At first, it might seem like concern. They might even frame it as just looking out for you. But if you look deeper, you'll realize something. Their doubts have nothing to do with you. They're simply reflecting their own fears and insecurities onto your life. Here's the truth. Small thinkers can't comprehend big visions. People who have never taken risks will always warn you about failure. Those who have settled for mediocrity will try to convince you that success is impossible. It's not that they know you can't do it, it's that they don't believe they could. And instead of confronting their own self-doubt, they try to make you believe in it too. As Marcus Aurelius once said, a person's worth is measured by the worth of what they value. If someone values comfort, security, and predictability, they will never understand someone who values ambition, growth, and pushing beyond limits. And if you listen to them, you risk shrinking your vision to fit their limitations. Let me share a story. A man I know, we'll call him Daniel, dreamed of starting his own business. He was excited, motivated, and ready to take the leap. He had a clear vision of the life he wanted to create, and he couldn't wait to get started. But when he shared his plans with those around him, all he heard was negativity. Most businesses fail. That's going to be really hard. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of responsibility? At first, Daniel started doubting himself. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was being reckless. Maybe he should play it safe. But then he realized something. These weren't the words of people who had tried and failed. These were the words of people who had never even tried. Their fear wasn't based on experience. It was based on self-doubt. So Daniel ignored them. He pushed forward, built his business, and made it work. And guess what? Those same people who doubted him later said, "I always knew you could do it." So how do you deal with people like this? 1. Recognize the source. Their words reflect their own fears, not your potential. When someone tells you something is impossible, ask yourself, are they speaking from experience, or are they just projecting their own limitations? 2. Don't argue. Prove them wrong. You don't need to convince them. You don't need their approval. The best way to silence doubters is through action. Let your results speak for themselves. 3. Protect your vision. Not everyone deserves access to your dreams. Be careful who you share them with. Some people will pour gasoline on your fire. Others will try to put it out. Choose wisely. At the end of the day, other people's fears are not yours to carry. Just because they can't see it for themselves doesn't mean it's impossible for you. So don't let their small thinking shrink your vision. Keep moving forward. Keep believing. And show them what's truly possible. Number 5, They are committed to misunderstanding you. Some people don't want to understand you, not because they can't, but because they won't. No matter how clearly you explain yourself, how much logic you provide, or how patient you are, they refuse to see your point of view. They aren't looking for truth. They're looking for conflict. Here's the reality. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. They will twist your words, paint you as the villain, and create drama where none exists. It's not about facts, it's about control. The more you engage, the more power you give them. You might think that explaining yourself will fix the situation, that if you just find the right words, they'll finally understand. But instead, they weaponize your words, drag you into endless debates, and drain your energy. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "He who indulges in empty fears earns himself real fears." In other words, the more you worry about how others perceive you, the more you suffer. The more you try to convince people who have already made up their minds, the more you exhaust yourself for no reason. The wise do not waste energy on those who refuse to listen. Let me share a story. A woman I know, we'll call her Julia, had a relative who constantly misinterpreted everything she said. If Julia set a boundary, they called her selfish. If she shared an opinion, they twisted it into something offensive. And every time she tried to explain herself, they interrupted, argued, and refused to actually listen. Then one day, Julia had a realization. This wasn't an accident. They weren't misunderstanding her out of confusion. They were doing it on purpose. They enjoyed playing the victim, making her look bad, and controlling the narrative. So Julia made a decision. No more defending herself, no more over-explaining. Instead, she responded with short, calm replies and removed herself from pointless discussions. And just like that, the drama lost its power. So how do you deal with people like this? 1. Recognize their game. If someone consistently twists your words, it's not a misunderstanding, it's a tactic. 2. Stop over-explaining. You owe no justifications to people who aren't listening in good faith. 3. Walk away with dignity. Not every battle is worth fighting, and some arguments exist only to waste your time. At the end of the day, you can't make someone understand what they refuse to see. Let them misunderstand you. Let them assume whatever they want. Your peace is worth more than their approval. 6. They thrive on emotional reactions. One of the most powerful ways manipulators maintain control is by provoking your emotions. You've seen it before. Someone pushes your buttons, says something insulting, or twists your words just enough to get under your skin. And the moment you react, whether with frustration, anger, or defensiveness, they win. Here's the truth. The more you explain, the more they provoke. These people don't want resolution. They don't want to understand. They want a reaction. They feed off your frustration. They feed off your need to defend yourself. They feed off your urge to prove them wrong. Every time you engage emotionally, you hand them power. Because they aren't arguing for truth. They're arguing to trigger you. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Think about that. When someone tries to provoke you, the strongest response isn't anger. It isn't explanation. It isn't a carefully crafted argument. It's calm indifference. The moment you stop reacting as they expect, they lose control over you. Let me share a story. A man I know, we'll call him Ryan, had a coworker who constantly tried to get a rise out of him. If Ryan made a suggestion in a meeting, this person would laugh and undermine him. If Ryan achieved something, they downplayed it with sarcasm. At first, Ryan fought back. He argued. He explained himself. He tried to prove his worth. But then he realized something. No matter what he said, this coworker would never acknowledge his efforts. They weren't debating in good faith. They were baiting him. So one day, Ryan changed his approach. The next time his coworker made a snide remark, Ryan simply smiled and said, "Interesting perspective." Then he moved on. No reaction, no defense, just calm detachment. And guess what? Without the emotional reaction to feed on, his coworker lost interest. So how do you deal with people like this? 1. Recognize the pattern. If someone repeatedly provokes you, it's intentional. 2. Master your emotions. Respond with calmness, or better yet, don't respond at all. 3. Take back your power. When you stop giving them the reaction they crave, they lose control over you. At the end of the day, true strength isn't in winning arguments. It's in staying unshaken. Let them talk. Let them provoke. Let them try. Your silence, your calmness, and your indifference will be your greatest victory. Final thoughts. The people who twist your words, bait you into arguments, or provoke emotional reactions aren't doing it by accident. They thrive on control, on keeping you emotionally entangled, and on pulling you into their world of drama and conflict. But here's what they don't expect. They don't expect you to stop explaining. They don't expect you to stop reacting. They don't expect you to remain unbothered. That's where your power lies. When you refuse to feed their negativity, you starve it. When you refuse to engage, they lose control. And in the end, the strongest person isn't the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who remains calm, focused, and untouchable. So the next time someone twists your words, let them. The next time someone tries to provoke you, don't give them the reaction they want, because your peace is worth more than their chaos. Here's a detailed and engaging expansion of your content. Number 7, you owe no explanation for your growth. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that you don't have to explain your growth to anyone. Maybe you've started making better choices, focusing on your goals, setting boundaries, prioritizing your well-being. And suddenly people start questioning you. Why are you acting different? You've changed. You used to be more fun. At first, their words might sting. You might feel pressured to justify yourself, to make them understand that your growth isn't personal, it's necessary. But here's the truth. Not everyone will understand your journey, and that's okay. Growth makes people uncomfortable. When you evolve, it forces others to reflect on their own lives. Some will celebrate you, but others will feel challenged, even threatened. Why? Because your progress highlights their stagnation. Instead of supporting your growth, they try to pull you back. But here's something you need to understand. Their discomfort isn't about you. It's about them. They see your progress as a reminder of what they're not doing. They mock your discipline because it forces them to question their own habits. They criticize your ambition because it exposes their own complacency. But none of this is your burden to carry. The wisdom of the Stoics. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In other words, as long as you are living with integrity, you owe no one an explanation. If your growth is right for you, no one else's opinion should matter. Let me share a story. A woman I know, we'll call her Emma, used to party every weekend with her friends. It was fun for a while, but over time she started feeling drained and unfulfilled. She wanted more out of life, so she made a change. She started reading more. She focused on fitness and health. She poured her energy into personal growth. And just like that, the comments started rolling in. "You're so boring now. You think you're better than us. Come on, just have fun like you used to." At first, Emma felt guilty, like she had to explain herself, like she was doing something wrong just because she was choosing a different path. She even considered going back to her old habits just to fit in. But then she had a realization. She wasn't the problem. Their resistance to her growth wasn't about her. It was about them. Her change made them uncomfortable because it forced them to confront their own choices. They weren't upset with her. They were upset with themselves. So Emma stopped explaining. She didn't argue. She didn't justify. She just kept moving forward. And then something interesting happened. The right people stayed, and the wrong ones faded away. The friends who truly valued her supported her journey. The ones who only liked the old version of her disappeared. And Emma was okay with that.